Hey everybody, it's Mother Teresa. How is everybody doing on tonight? On this Tuesday night, it's time to grandstand. I hope you all have had a great week since the last time that I saw you, and that you all are ready to grandstand on tonight. If you saw my title, I put on there, Release Emotional Baggage. Now, let me just tell you that I cannot see. I am, as you can tell from my background, I am not at home on today. And so I cannot see your your comments. Let me see. I may be able to get them, but I cannot see your comments. But I just want to say, for everyone that is already tuned in on tonight, listen, don't just come by yourself. Now I've not been the partying type, but I do know that when you would go to a party, at least this is what I've been told, is that you didn't show up at a party by yourself. You would bring somebody along with you. So I'm going to ask you to get in contact with somebody and tell them, hey, Mother Teresa is on. That lady from Nacogdoches is on, and she's going to be talking about releasing emotional baggage. So listen, while I'm trying to find YouTube on my other device, why don't you all help me out by telling somebody to join us, okay? And so I'm going to do this, but I am going to see if I can find the my Facebook. I see we've got some people on here right now. I have no idea who you are, but in just a few minutes, I will be able to know who you are as we are talking about emotional baggage on tonight. Now, first of all, I have a YouTube channel. So I have been sharing, I talked about this the other night, about how it is that we are so weighed down sometimes with emotional baggage. And when we are weighed down with emotional baggage, that hinders us. Oh, I see Net. Okay, so I know more than Net is on here, but we are, thank you, honey. When we have emotional baggage, you all, we find ourselves weighed down by so many different things. And because we are weighed down with so many different things, a lot of times it hinders us from moving forward. So listen, I'm not going to be able to get that, but I can see a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on. When we're talking about emotional baggage, first of all, how many of you all know when I say emotional baggage, what I am actually talking about? Um, and for most of you all, you're going to immediately know what I'm talking about. But for some of you all, you're going to be thinking like, I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure what you mean by the emotional baggage. Well, let me just tell you what I mean when I talk about emotional baggage. If I ask you the question, what is something from the past that you have struggled, and I do have my notes right here, so if I keep looking down, I'm looking at my notes, that you have struggled to let go? Something that you have been carrying around with you for quite some time, and you just can't seem to shake it. It's like some people would say it's that monkey that's on your back, and I hate to use that term, but it's like a heavy weight that it seems to be weighing you down. It feels like your shoulders are just kind of drooped because that thing is so heavy on you. That's what emotional baggage could be. Now, a lot of times, what I will say is that a lot of times we deal with things that have happened in our past, especially those things that we may have dealt with in our childhood. And you may say, well, why does everything have to go back to your childhood? Well, because a lot of it just does. See, a lot of things that happen in our childhood, there is a lot of times that there is no resolve. You don't get the help that you need in order to make those things right, or to right the wrongs that may have happened in your childhood. Now, sometimes it is not anything that you caused, but it's just the sick minds of other people, whether those other people are adults in your family, adults outside of your family, or even children. Now, let me just say this. A lot of times when we're thinking about childhood trauma, if you go back to your childhood, there were things that happened in school. There may have been a teacher that said something that caused you to suffer some trauma. There could have been another student. There could have been a number of different things. And I was talking about this with a friend of mine, that there were teachers that were at our school, and I'm just going to say at my elementary school. There were two different teachers that I can think about, and I can compare and contrast those two teachers. One was an amazing, amazing teacher who looked like me, who spoke life into me. She was always the one who, and these were both, hello there, Sister Patton. Both of them were my fifth grade teachers. And so, but let me just tell you, just like the profound effect that this one teacher, and I will always call her name Miss Martha Woods. If you have Miss Martha Woods, then you know what I'm talking about. Miss Woods was the type of teacher who, first of all, she made, well, hello there, my friend Laverne. She made the subject come to life. Not only did she make the subject come to life, but she spoke life into the students that were in her class. Not just some students, but to all of the students. And what she did, or when she did that, it made us want to come to her class. It made us want to pay attention. It made us want to behave and listen in her class, because she was always giving out these, words of, of admiration. She was just a good teacher, just a good person. On the other hand, I had another teacher who was just the opposite. I think she had been really there too long. She was older, and she just did not. Hello there, Laquila. She just did not make us feel welcome. She did not make the subject interesting. She simply taught. And most of the time, she taught from her desk. She didn't get up and she didn't move around the class. She did not engage the students. She did not do any of those things. And she surely did not inspire us to learn. That was a trauma. That was a traumatic event that happened, and probably not just my life, but in the lives of those children that were in her classroom. She never spoke life to us. She never encouraged us to excel. She never encouraged us to do our best, and she just didn't. And I think back, and I think to myself now, I wonder what happened to her. What made her become the type of lady that she was, the type of teacher that she was? I'm quite sure maybe in her younger days, when she first started teaching, she was a wonderful teacher, a fantastic teacher. But in her older years, she was not. So when I talk about the baggage, when I talk about the things that you have struggled and held on to for years that you just cannot seem to shake, that's that emotional baggage that I'm talking about. And when we talk about freedom, we talk about what is the freedom that you need in order to release some of this emotional baggage. One of the scriptures that comes to mind is when we, and this is the New International Version. It says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That's Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. One of the things that I do know is that I can cast my burden, I can take my burdens, I can take my cares to God, and He's able to give us some relief. But let me just tell you, in the day-to-day operating, how we operate, or until that happens, you all, we are burdened. We are so burdened down. And I talked about on Monday about it being President's Day and how we have to pray for our past, current, and future presidents. That is a must. We have to, especially as people of faith, as believers. We are charged to pray for people. We don't necessarily have to agree with everybody. We don't necessarily have to agree with their thoughts, their beliefs. We don't have to agree. But what we do have to do is we have to pray for those people that are in authority, that are in power. And some of you all may say, "I can't do that, Mother Teresa." Well, I'm going to tell you, you have to, okay? And if you pray for those people, then hopefully there will be some change. But talking about being burdened and just being cast down, when you have not been able to release the emotional baggage that you carried, and not specifically mentioned from childhood, and then you have current emotional baggage or things or trauma or whatever, it's just, things that are piled on top of other things. And it's like, how do I get a break? How do I shake this? How do I get some relief? Well, the first thing I did share with you all is making sure that you are taking those cares to God. The other thing that I want to share with you all, and I know I shared my personal story just on that, but we all have our individual stories. We all have stories that if I ask you, or if somebody asks you, if I ask you to post a story in the chat, which I am not going to do this because this is rather personal, what I'm talking about on tonight. But we all have stories of different things that we have dealt with. And yours may not look like mine, and that's okay. But we all have things that we are dealing with. So one of the things that I want to also say is that when it comes to, and again, I talked about the emotional baggage and it weighing us down, Jesus is the one who can offer us rest and renewal. But some of the other things that I wanted to just jump right here and state is that one of the things I said, your story may not look like mine and my story may not look like yours. Well, there are some commonalities into all of this. And a lot of times what we're dealing with is, like I said, trauma, whether it's childhood trauma or maybe it's trauma dealing with adults. But one of the other things, past mistakes, current mistakes, rejection. But here's a big one. Here's a big one, and it's one that we really have to work on. It's unforgiveness. Unforgiveness. Again, sometimes you are the recipient of some things that have happened to you, and now you have to deal with the being able to forgive the person who wronged you. That can be a lot. So I'm going to pause while you sit with that for just a minute. Whew, you have to take a breath sometimes, okay? Because it can be so heavy that you don't necessarily want to forgive that individual. You don't want to let go of that feeling that you have. Because let me just tell you, sometimes we can actually think that if we forgive a person, that we're letting them off the hook. And that is so not true. When you do a study of forgiveness and the effects that unforgiveness and the effects that it has on your body, you have to understand that you are the one that's suffering. You are the one that can't sleep at night. You are the one that's having health issues. You are the ones that's having all types of things that is, stuff that's going on in your mind. These thoughts that are definitely not pure and holy. Sometimes you have to forgive them without an apology. Absolutely. And that's what I was going to get to, Ned. And that's part of some of the notes that I have, is that sometimes you may never, ever get an apology. Not because that person is dead, but simply you just may not get that apology. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with not getting an apology and still being able to forgive them. Yeah, you got to be able to do that. Unforgiveness is for you. Again, I said sometimes we think that if we forgive somebody, it is letting that other person off the hook. But actually, what you're doing in reality is you're letting yourself off the hook. You're letting yourself be able to freely move forward and to heal. Because let me just tell you, if you've got some unforgiveness in your heart, baby, you cannot heal. You cannot heal from that thing. And I'm not saying to forget it, because some people say you need to forgive and forget. I can't say that, because let me just tell you, one of the things that I realize is that as long as I have forgiven you and I've been able to move forward, there's always probably going to be a little bit of kind of like, hey, Sequoia, there's always going to be a little bit of that like, I recognize you for who you are. I know what you did. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to love you because the Bible tells me I have to. But I'm always going to make sure that I keep my distance. And it may not be a huge distance, but you're always going to be aware. And let me just tell you all, and there may be some people on here, hello there, Stephanie, that do not agree with what I'm saying about that. And that's all right. It's quite all right. I don't ever expect for people to agree with me with everything that I'm saying. Remember, this is just my thoughts, my take on this. I believe that in order for us to have that, is it self-preservation? That in order for us to protect ourselves, we've got to make sure that if we knew that that dog bit us last week, guess what? I'm not going to mess with that dog this week because I don't want that dog to bite me again. Okay? So I've got to remember those things. I've got to remember what happened, but I've not forgotten it, but I've forgiven you. But I'm not going to put myself in that position to allow you to bite me again. So, emotional baggage is pain, trauma, regrets, unresolved emotions that we carry. Some of the signs that you're carrying some emotional baggage is that a lot of times you will overreact to some small issues. It may not be anything significant, but you tend to overreact to the little tiny things, little bitty things, and it just blows you out of the water. You're overreacting to things. You may have difficulty trusting people. Yeah, you may have difficulty trusting people. You may also feel like you're stuck in the past pain, like that pain, it just won't go away, because you haven't dealt with it. And then a lot of times we put up a wall. We put up a wall because we don't want to be vulnerable. Okay? You don't want to be vulnerable. Hello, Yvonne. Yvonne, you don't want to be vulnerable, so you put up that wall so you can protect yourself. Hello there, Mel. And when you do that, you're keeping everybody at a safe distance. And like I said, people don't have to agree with me. But when you're dealing with that emotional baggage, you're going to have some of those things. And these are some of the things that happens when we don't let them go. Um, there are some spiritual and emotional consequences in there. I already talked about you're not as happy as you, well, maybe I didn't say this, but you lack that peace and that joy and that happiness and be free, and you're free to, just kind of to be yourself. There's going to be some struggles in your relationship. And sometimes you may even feel distance with God. Here's another Bible reference. It's Hebrews 12:1. Let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles us. Those things that so easily beset us, those things that tend to just kind of, get up under your skin. Let's throw those things off. So that means you got to deal with that emotional baggage. And then you want to know how to get rid of it. And I realize my time is just rapidly going. First of all, you have to acknowledge it. I read somewhere where it says you have to be able to name it in order to be able to claim it. Well, hello there, Kiki. I'm so glad that you were able to tune in tonight. You have to be able to acknowledge and name what you're trying to deal with. You cannot heal what you cannot confront. If you can't talk about the thing, if you cannot confront the thing, you're not going to be able to heal from it. There's just no way. You've got to be able to have a conversation about it. And if you're wondering, do you have anything that you need to let go? Ask yourself, what past experiences, what are some things that happened to me in my past that is still weighing me down? That every time I turn around, it's like I'm running into that thing once again. It's just, I cannot get past it. And let me just tell you again, you're not going to get past it until you acknowledge it and you confront it. And I said earlier on one of my other lives when I was talking about this to another audience, is that you've got to do the work. Because it just doesn't dissolve and you work through it or you get over it just by saying, you know what, I acknowledge it. Okay, I'm done with it. No, it's going to take more than that, especially if it was something or someone did something to you, offended you, hurt you. Remember, like Ned said, you may not ever get an apology. Sometimes you got to write the letter and not mail it. Sometimes you got to make a video and not send it. Sometimes you have to just go and sit. We used to, in counseling, we called it the empty chair. Sometimes you have to go get an empty chair and set that chair there and pretend that that person is sitting in the chair and talk to the chair. Those are some things that and of course, you always got to pray about it. Always got to pray about it. And then the other thing that I would say, visualize, after you did those things, visualize handing it over to God. Visualize just saying, God, I wrote this letter. I'm not going to send it. Matter of fact, I'm going to burn it. But I'm handing this over to you. Okay? I'm giving it over to you because guess what? These shoulders may be pretty broad or whatever, but they cannot handle this. And so I need to release it. And so because I need to release it, I'm going to give it to the one who can handle everything. So I'm going to give it to you, God. And so, and when you do that, that is part of that healing process. Now, let me just tell you, a lot of times the pain wants you to stay right there. Sometimes the people that hurt you, that they know that you haven't gotten over it. They want you to stay right there. Because guess what? Really, if you give it to them, you've given them some power. Okay? If every time you think about them, every time you see them, whatever, there is a little bit of whatever, and they're probably thinking, they still ain't got over this, and it happened 10 years ago. This happened 2 weeks ago. This happened 5 decades ago, and they still haven't gotten over it. Okay? So one of the things that I just want you all, as we're beginning to wrap up, I can't believe the time has went by so fast. Let me just tell you how you can replace the lies of unforgiveness and emotional baggage with truth. The lie says, I'm not worthy. The truth says, and this comes from Psalms 139, 14, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. The lie says, I will never heal. The truth is, forget the former things, I am doing a new thing. So as I am closing on tonight, there's a couple other things that I would advocate. You know, as a mental health provider. Hello there, Miss Simotis. I advocate journaling. If you don't have a journal, get you a good journal. And if you need one, see me. I have a couple of journals that I have written. You can find them on Amazon. But get you a journal and start journaling, because sometimes, like I said, when we're trying to release some emotional baggage, we've got to have an outlet. And the outlet could be journaling. One of the things, as a social worker, when I was working directly with students, I would often tell them to journal. I would often tell them, write it down. And so you can deal with it. That's your way of being able to express it in a safe way. Just write it down. And then as those things begin to resolve, then you can go back and you can read those journals, and then you can look back and see how far you've come, how you have worked that thing through, and how it's no longer an issue. Yes, journaling was great for you. Good, Mel. And so that's one of the things that you can do. The other thing is, of course, prayer is always going to be at the top of the list. But another thing, find you a good, reliable, strong, godly person that will, not necessarily accountability a partner, but somebody that you can talk to. It looks like I'm having a little bit of internet issues, so I'm gonna definitely need to wrap this up. But find you somebody you can talk to. Find somebody that you can talk to, and you know it's not going to go anywhere. They're going to hold you accountable, but they're going to push you to become better. Okay? And so that's always one of the things I like to tell the kids: find you a trusted adult. And when you find you a trusted adult, when I tell the kids that, I said, make sure that you utilize that trusted adult. Okay? But also just know sometimes that trusted adult, it depends on what you share with them. And this is for the kiddos. Sometimes they have to share some things, but we're not going to be, we're all adults on here. So find you somebody that you can talk to. But as I am wrapping up on tonight, I just want you all to know that as we're releasing our emotional baggage and we are trying to move beyond and releasing all of those things, I'm going to ask that you would take at least one step this week to try to move into a more positive direction. But I'm also going to ask that I'm also going to pray for release, renewal, and peace for anybody that's struggling with emotional burdens. And I'm going to ask that God would grant healing and restoration to you in your life. Okay? We can all use that, no matter what we're going through, no matter what we're dealing with. And sometimes it's not necessarily that you may be dealing with some emotional baggage, but prayer is good for everything. So when I say I'm asking for peace, for renewal, for release, and for healing and restoration. That could be for anything. All right, you all. And so just want you all to remember that with the burdens that you're carrying, God didn't create these burdens. He did not. Thank you. Somebody sent me some stars. Thank you so very much. I can't tell who it is, but thank you, thank you, thank you for the stars. I wish I could see who it is, but I can't. Remember, I'm not at home tonight, so I can't really see who's a lot of the different things that's happening. But I want y'all to just remember, in this life, we're going to have some ups and downs. We're going to have some things that don't always go our way. We're going to have some days that just, like the old song, Mama said that there would be days like this. Well, honey, let me just tell you, we are having some doozy of some days. And because we are having days like this, we got to remember to stay connected, not just staying connected with one another, but staying connected with God. Whatever faith and whatever foundation that you have established yourself on, don't let go. Now is not the time to get slack. Now is not the time to get complacent. Now is not the time to let go of the strong anchor that we have. If anything, now is the time to grab hold. I heard this before. If you feel like you're slipping, tie a knot into the rope and keep hanging on, okay? Keep on hanging on, keep on living, keep on thriving, keep on praying. And in the meantime, which is my theme music, in the meantime, I want you all to continue to try to make sure that you are releasing some of this baggage, that you are releasing some of the things that are got you bound. Because guess what? You cannot, I said this before, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So your cup's got to be filled, you all. I hope you all have enjoyed grandstanding on tonight. And I've enjoyed you all. Thank you all so very much for joining me on tonight. Come back and be with me on next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Tell somebody about grandstanding. And listen, if you are not a subscriber on YouTube, I've got lots of other stuff on YouTube. You all are missing out a lot if you're not over there on YouTube. Go over to the other Mother Teresa and see what I've got over there. Y'all have a great night, and bye-bye, everybody. Take care and breathe. And let me just say this. For the grandstanders, I want to say, as my sister Cynthia would say, good night, grandstanders, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.